Welcome back to another video, guys. I'm Shift, and I was invited to this event called CaliCreaming here in Bakersfield, California. Before this event, I met two brothers, both Javi and Lorenzo, and they're both photographers and vloggers for a company that they created. I'll tag their Instagram handle here in the video, but they basically extended the offer to have me come out to CaliCreaming and do some drifting in my 8.6. So I couldn't deny that, so I figured why not. Since they were both working the event as photographers, I went ahead and came out and checked it out for the first time. Originally, when they had invited me, they thought that the public would be able to drift in the inner circle in the main course. But due to some last-minute changes and some liability issues, they went ahead and moved it over to the burnout box or drift box. Either way, I was looking forward to having a good time regardless. But for me, for the first time, I've never drifted near barriers before. I usually tend to stay away from that, so I was pretty nervous to begin with, a little anxious, but overall eager to give it a shot. Prior to today, I did take my 8.6 out and learn some car control in some open spaces, and I did create some videos of entry level how to drift and basically some drift techniques of how to initiate into different turns. So I will include that in the description in case you're curious. But overall, I did have some pretty good understanding of how to control the car around some cones, but now with the X factor being barriers, I just had to be a little bit extra on my toes just to make sure that I can pull it off. Overall, the objective of the day was to have fun, but I also knew that I did have to drive a couple hours out from Los Angeles, and I did want to drive my car back home, so didn't want to have any missing bumpers or anything, so I just took it easy. The turnout of cars was actually pretty interesting because it was a wide variety of many things. So my first objective was 1, don't hit the wall. Second objective, feel out the surface. I immediately noticed that it was extra sticky just from all the other rubber that has been laid down in this particular section. So I got to see how much more input of gas that I really needed, which was a lot, and I just had to adjust my steering accordingly. Once I started to get the hang of it though, I started to push the circle wider and wider. Here I started to experiment getting a little bit closer to the wall each time I came around, just to see how much more angle I needed, how much gas I needed, and just kept on adjusting more and more. After a certain point, I think I hit my comfort limit because any closer at some point, I'd probably lose it. Now with the weather, considering how warm it's been out in Bakersfield, that particular day was actually the cooler of all days throughout the week. It was still above 80 degrees, but I had to be mindful of my engine temps because, for one, I wasn't getting airflow going sideways, so I had to make sure my oil temps didn't go too high. So I always kept an eye on that as I was doing this at the same time. One thing I noticed was stamina being a factor because I was doing these 2-minute sessions at a time, and I had to make sure that I can keep up with just constantly looking, constantly trying to get close enough to the wall, but not too close where I hit it, but also making all those little micro adjustments with the gas pedal, with the steering. I did get a little warm, and even though the AC was on technically, I noticed another thing with the car was that it actually stopped blowing as cold. So I'm wondering if that's just a built-in safety feature with Toyota. Maybe it dials back the AC compressor, maybe it shuts it off for the time being, especially when the engine temps are climbing. So who knows? That's probably just protocol they went ahead and programmed into the software. There were a couple of moments where I had to clutch kick it because it started to grip up a little bit more. Maybe I had lost my angle with how much speed I was carrying, so I had to just give it a little bit extra because that surface was pretty sticky. It was stickier than I ever had slid across any surface before, so it was just an adjustment I had to make. I started playing around with the size of the circle, so I brought it in a little tighter, because I was also getting a little exhausted getting close to the wall. Then I just had to reset and then start going wide again, and just started playing with the radius of it again. So both Javi and Lorenzo, they were wearing green shirts, and I'm pretty sure you noticed at some point there's a guy holding a camera that's close to the barrier. So I was really just trying to get close to him for the most part, but overall I was trying to adjust, and at some point, here I go, I went ahead and spun out. I just kind of lost my momentum when I was trying one extra thing too many. But I just kind of kept it going. I changed directions and made use of the last remaining of the time. And finally I saw my oil temps get into the mid 250s, so I figured I'd cut it. It was perfect timing. So this session, now that I had a hang of it, going one direction is one thing, so I went ahead and just changed directions. So now I'm going clockwise instead of counterclockwise from the beginning. And it just changed it up a little bit. Now where I'm looking and the direction I'm traveling is a little bit different, so now I just have it just for, instead of my right side, now I'm adjusting and counting for my left side, getting close to the barrier. So I just did the same thing, just switched it up in reverse. Had to get used to just going in a different direction. So a lot of drivers have a tendency to leave space on the side that they're not driving on. So if you're on the driver's side and you're getting close to a barrier or something on your left side, you typically have a better judgment of how much spatial awareness you have, but a lot of times the drivers on the opposite side tend to give a little extra space just because they're not too familiar or comfortable with their car. But honestly, that usually takes a little bit seat time with the car, a little bit more practice, just getting used to how much closer you can actually get. I noticed this time around my engine oil temps got a little bit warmer a lot quicker than the first session, and it's mainly because I already had a first session before. Yes, I gave it some time to cool down and whatnot, but it was already heat soaked, it was getting warmer, and so I had to really account for that, and it cut my time down a little bit just because I didn't want to blow this thing up. So this time around with the rising temperatures, I noticed the ground was even stickier, so I really had to work for it even more, be a little bit more aggressive with the steering, a little bit more aggressive with the gas, and then just kind of account for that. But I noticed that at some moment I did lose momentum, right here. So I just went ahead and chucked it around and then kept going. I had to reset myself and then started going the other direction. So the first session and this session, I actually had the brothers mount a couple cameras onto my car. They wanted to capture some different angles of footage while I was going around, so that's why I changed different directions, gave them some different angles. But at some point, I started to get tired because I was already getting too warm. The car was getting warm, so I just cut it actually a little bit earlier than the 2 minutes. By the third session, though, I had given it an extra hour and a half to cool down. So by this third session, I was talking to the photographers and they asked me, let's go ahead and try something different. I was like, alright, do you have any preference? And they said, well, surprise me. So I went ahead and just tried figure eights this time. The only thing I was looking into was, okay, if I want to execute the figure eight, I was looking at the dimension of the box, and it wasn't a perfect box. It was more like a rectangle. So I figured if I started on one corner and went towards the corner that's furthest, that would give me a little bit extra room. So of course I was nervous, but when I went ahead and got into it, I basically tuned everything out and just got into my element. Then it just started to flow naturally. At this point, it was kind of like a free-for-all. I was just doing a free run, so I mixed it up. Went from figure eights, then I spun it to do a circle, then I spun it again to do another circle, went back to figure eights, and so on and so forth. I'm the type of person that likes a challenge, so whenever I can mix and match different approaches or different techniques, I just try it. And especially being confined to a box, I figured, okay, well, if I can transition from a figure eight to a giant circle, and then back to figure eight and back the other direction of circle, then at least I have a good understanding of the car's behaviors and patterns over this course of time. What this all boils down to is just seat time. And I spent a good amount of time in this 8.6, but what made it easy was my previous car I practiced in the 350Z, then I also practiced in a Miata previous to that. So once you figure out the FR platform, front engine, rear wheel drive, then you try different power differences or the lack of power, then a car like this actually becomes pretty easy. I always tell people, if you learn how to slide and drift in a Miata, you can pretty much drift anything. By this third session, I was just having some fun doing transitions between figure eights, circles that were counterclockwise and clockwise, and I think this time around the crowd actually had fun watching it because I gave them a mixed bag of different things.